Welcome back to the studio. Nice to have you.
So I want to thank you all. It's very early in the morning. I think you probably broke the all-time in history television rating for 3 o'clock in the morning, that I would say.
We've had 17 released, and we're very proud of that record. Very proud. And we have others coming. We're in the midst of some very big negotiations to get others out.
Good morning and welcome to AM Joy. Well, it's a well-known secret that reality television, like pro wrestling, isn't really real. The drama and the conflicts that make the audience go wild are largely scripted. The same could be said about the reality TV presidency, this polarizing cocktail of government and shock jock entertainment, where buzzwords and branding go a lot farther than actual facts. Donald Trump knows this, and his ability, or rather his compulsion to lie, even about things that are easy to prove, has in a crazy way actually helped him, allowing him to play the victim for his fans and distract the rest of us from his multiple controversies and policy failures. Which is why now, as we pass the one-year mark on special counsel Robert Mueller's probe, we're seeing Trump peddle yet another fake scandal to distract from the real potential crisis dogging his presidency. The mounting evidence that the Trump campaign cooperated with Russia's attack on our democracy and that the President of the United States obstructed justice in an attempt to cover it up. That, very simply, is Russiagate. The fake scandal that Trump scripted for us in the media this week has a name, one we're not going to repeat this morning, and it has tweets to go with it, which I am not going to read, because reading those tweets is what he wants us to do. But the focus of this latest reality show episode is a revival of the lie that the FBI under President Obama spied on Trump's campaign in 2016. It's the latest effort in Trump's ongoing crusade to discredit the Mueller investigation and to make you doubt it. A crusade that's fueling the Trump train and forcing the rest of us to ponder. Is Russiagate at this point so riddled with Trump lies and chaos and confusion that he could actually avoid taking the fall? Joining me now is Congresswoman Maxine Waters of California, one of the most vocal Russiagate critics on the Hill. And Congresswoman, thank you for being here. Good morning.
Good morning, and I'm delighted to be with you again.
Thank you. You know, I'm glad to talk to you this morning because I feel like, you know, you're one of the few Democrats who seems to understand that you have to have a strong public, kind of almost branded counterweight to Donald Trump, because he is running this show. It's sort of like a reality show in which he floods the zone with constant new episodes, new controversies, new made-up scandals that completely take us off the plot. Are you concerned that your party is so determined not to center Donald Trump that they are avoiding the fact that he is the center of, he is the center right now?
You know, I'm very concerned that given all that we have learned about this president, given all of the connections of his allies and the people around him to Russia, whether it's to Putin or the Kremlin or the oligarchs, given the fact that our special counsel has indicted Manafort, given the fact that we know that Flynn was invited to come to Russia and he was there, he sat with Putin, he even earned money on a speaking engagement, and on and on and on, that there's not an understanding about the danger of this president and the way that he has lied and the way that he has tried to divert attention, the way that he has tried to undo the investigation and say that it is not lawful, it is not legal, that Mueller should not be doing what he's doing. I mean, the information that we know and the evidence that we see about him trying to undermine the investigation, the obstruction of justice that's unfolding right before our very eyes, and the Republicans are not standing up and parting from this man. And the Democrats feel that if and somehow we continue to talk about him or focus on him, that that's going to go against us rather than help us to, you know, get him focused on by the American public in ways that they will understand the danger. So it is frustrating, but I think that I am absolutely correct in what I'm seeing, what I have learned. I believe he is dangerous, and I believe that unless we move collectively in a bipartisan way, that this man is going to be very destructive to our democracy.
You know, and to that very point, Congresswoman, I mean, we have seen multiple guilty pleas and indictments. I just want to put them up on the screen for the audience. Michael Flynn pleaded guilty. George Papadopoulos, who worked with the campaign, pleaded guilty. Rick Gates, Richard Pinedo, Alex von der Swan, and Paul Manafort. You go on and on and on. 13 Russian nationals. There have been multiple indictments. And yet, Congresswoman, the Global Strategy Group did a poll. And they asked people a lot of questions, but here are a couple. How much have you heard about the Mueller investigation? Look at that. Most people say they've heard a lot. The people who say they've heard a lot the most intensely are Republicans. They say they've heard a lot the most, right? But when you ask people, has the probe uncovered crimes? I just showed you the people who pleaded guilty. No. A majority of Americans say they do not know that there have been crimes uncovered. And look at Republicans. 85% say that, to their knowledge, no crimes have been uncovered. And I'll show you one more thing. A word cloud that the same organization did, where they asked for your sort of stream of consciousness. What's the word that comes to mind? Look at that. Donald Trump's favorite buzzword, witch hunt. Are you concerned that the general public, particularly, you know, Republicans are just for Trump, so maybe we should discount that. But I even see independents in this poll, not even knowing that there have been crimes uncovered.
Yeah, I am concerned, but you know, the way it has unfolded, there's so much information that's coming out almost on a daily basis that the average American just can't keep up with it. You know, people go to work, they go about their lives, they may turn on television on the so-called news hour in the evening, or maybe catch a little bit in the morning, but they don't know all of the details, and they don't understand, you know, how many countries have been indicted. 3 countries involved in this already. They don't know how many people have been indicted. They don't know. They may know about Manafort, or they may know about Flynn, but they don't know about Papadopoulos. They don't know about Gates. They don't know about the others who are entangled in this mess. But they should know this. They should know that something is terribly wrong, that there's all of these connections that have been uncovered with Russia. They should know about now the 2 meetings that Trump Jr. has had with Russians, and they should know that there was an attempt to create a back channel rather, to Putin and connect our president and Putin in some ways. They should know the basics, but they don't know the details. Yeah. But that's okay. We cannot give up. We cannot allow him to destruct this investigation in the way that he's doing. He lied about a spy being embedded in his campaign. There's been no spy embedded in his campaign. He's lying about witch hunt, but you notice this, he says witch hunt over and over again. He has learned some of the Russia tactics about how you know, deal with getting people to believe you. You say it over and over again. And he has discredited the media by saying it over and over again. There's no witch hunt, there's no spy, but he thinks that, you know, this lesson that he's learned, and I think it is from the Russian tactics that he's learned this over the years, that if he says it enough, he can get people to believe it.
Yeah, it's a frightening concept, you know, as a citizen, to think that so many fellow citizens either don't know or don't care about foreign involvement in our election system. But you have been consistent in it, Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend.
And thank you very much. You just keep on going. I love what you're doing. I love the way you handle the news, and I'm so appreciative for the information that you share with this country and with the world.
Congresswoman Waters, thank you so much.
You're
welcome.
welcome.
Cheers. All right, thank you. And joining us now, our panel, Natasha Bertrand of The Atlantic, Republican strategist for Mercury Public Affairs, Caton Dawson, Democratic pollster, Fernanda Mondi, and Maria Teresa Kumar of Voto Latino. Thank you all very much. Natasha, I'm going to come to you first, because just as an example of it, I mean, what Trump does, I mean, he's clever at one thing, which is branding. He labels people things. He says little Marco, suddenly people think little Marco when they see Marco Rubio. He says low energy Jeb, people think low energy Jeb. He's good at branding and giving things nicknames. But he also is so brazen about saying things that are not only a lie, but that are just an easily disprovable lie. There's sound or something to back it up. I want to show one example here. This is element 2 from our producers. This is a Trump tweet on Thursday morning, in which he claims that the former director of national intelligence, Jim Clapper, has admitted that there was spying in his campaign. He claims that it's admitted, that money's paid. He puts all these details in it. He puts his tagline in there, which he wants the media to say, his hashtag that he wants everyone to repeat, that ends up in all these headlines. Now let us actually play James Clapper, former DNI, under President Obama, and what he actually said.
Was the FBI spying on Trump's campaign?
No, they were not. They were spying on a term I don't particularly like, but on what the Russians were doing, trying to understand, were the Russians infiltrating, trying to gain access, trying to gain leverage and influence.
So why doesn't he like?
Which is what they do.
Did the intelligence community spy on President Trump and his campaign?
No, we did not, and that is a distortion of what I said.
You know, as a journalist, you've been covering this Russiagate phenomenon, as long as we've been covering it. Complexity is not your friend in this, right, for the average person. So how, from a journalistic point of view, do you get your arms around something that Donald Trump can pick out one fact, which is that the FBI was trying to find out if the Russians were infiltrating his campaign. He turns that into spying, and he obscures, even though there are easily provable facts that disprove it.
Right, and the question that seems to be on everyone's mind now is, when do you call it a lie versus a demonstrable falsehood, for example? Right. And this is something where we're all wondering, is this something that's pathological, where he just does not understand the difference between a lie and the truth at this point, because everything to him is just spin? Or is it deliberate? And based on what Leslie Stahl said last week about his attacks on the media, where he said, I do it for a specific purpose. I have a strategy here. Essentially, I discredit you because I want it to, whenever you write something negative about me, I don't want anyone to believe you. That really was a window into his mindset here. And it makes you wonder, is it worse that he might not understand the difference between truth and a lie, or is it worse that he's actually, this is all very deliberate? And of course, this is part of a larger pattern. Ever since last year, he has been trying thing after thing to discredit the Russia investigation. First, it was the unmasking scandal with the help of Devin Nunes. Right. Then it was, it was wiretapping. Then it was the FISA warrant on Carter Page. And now it's this idea that there was a spy embedded in his campaign, which of course is just not true. Informants are used by the FBI all the time. There are actually specific guidelines that are encouraging of the FBI to use human sources because they're just more effective. And I think that he is deliberately trying to obfuscate from the fact that the FBI was so concerned about the Trump campaign's willingness to kind of solicit international help for his campaign, not even just from Russia, but from the United Arab Emirates, from Saudi Arabia, that they went as far as to send someone to actually communicate with members of his campaign to see if there was something awry there. So. Yeah.
And, Fernand, I'm glad to have you here today, my friend, because you have a few different skill sets that are appropriate here. You're a pollster, and a very good one. But you've also done talk radio. So you have been on the receiving end of the recipients of this kind of information. And I know you, like me, have your Twitter feed filled with this information that people seem to genuinely believe. Can we put this word cloud back up again? This is something you'd be very familiar with, obviously, from your work in polling. The idea that Trump has been able to distill down what the Russiagate scandal is, which is a pretty simple scandal. Russians infiltrate the campaign. Trump tries to cover it up by firing Jim Comey and other things. It's pretty simple, but the complexity of the details has made witch hunt an easier thing to remember. Is there a way that that can be countered?
I believe so, but we have to acknowledge that Trump is right now winning the branding war. But part of it is because I think, Joy, the media, the mainstream media, has a responsibility to do what this show is doing, start ignoring his lies. They're not falsehoods, they're lies. They're conscientious, deliberate lies, and start focusing on the facts. I have to go back to what to me is the most incredible revelation of the week, which is former National Director of Intelligence James Clapper. And let's understand who James Clapper is. James Clapper is the most respected, experienced, decorated intelligence officer of the last 50 years. He is the Robert Mueller of intelligence officers. And he has revealed this week what many of us who have our eyes open have suspected. He has gone on record and said he believes that Putin personally directed this operation, this attack against the United States, which put Donald Trump in office. What is he saying, and how does this go to the Trump branding? What James Clapper is saying is that Donald Trump is illegitimate. He is an illegitimate president of the United States. And I think this is what the mantra needs to be said to the American people. You have the person who looked at the evidence, looked at the facts during and after the election, and is saying in no uncertain terms he does not trust this president. He feels the evidence is for collusion. He feels that the evidence hints at treason. So when we say, Joy, this is not normal, we got to go beyond that. This is sabotage. The president of the United States is illegitimate, and that is what the media, I think, needs to start pointing to, those facts. 5 guilty pleas, 19 indictments, 75 criminal charges.
Yeah, and Kate, I think what really disturbs, those of us who've been following this since the campaign, is that the goal on the Trump side obviously is to exonerate himself, to get away with it, right? And to extricate himself in case anyone else is indicted or there are additional indictments that he doesn't go down with the ship, but also to convince the voters that you work with every day in the campaigns that you work on that even if it's true, it doesn't matter, right? That even if a foreign government helped Donald Trump become president, so what, right? That to get American citizens to not mind that that's the way a president comes into office, or to think that there's so much other random, corruption that it's all of a piece. And the persons who are helping him do that include people who've also sworn to uphold the Constitution. The Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, is helping Devin Nunes, a California congressman who was part of the Trump campaign, the transition. He was on the transition. He's obviously trying to destroy the Mueller investigation, even by revealing classified information. The Speaker of the House is backing him up and helping him do that, rather than upholding the Constitution. He's on Nunes' side. Here is Paul Ryan on Thursday being asked if he even believes this absurd conspiracy theory that Donald Trump was being spied on. Take a listen.
You honestly believe that they were spied? I don't know the answer to that question.
He does know the answer to that question, Caton. And I am concerned that your party is, Steve Schmidt has put it in much tougher terms, the former McCain campaign manager, is literally saying we don't care about the national interest. We only care about protecting Trump. Caton?
Yeah, well, I think you're using the word cover-up, maybe, is what you're accusing us of. The president's been brilliant at obviously changing the conversation on numerous fronts. I picked up the word spy this morning in a group I was in, so he's able, and Fernand's right, he's able to win the argument because of the coverage that he gets continually on changing the conversation. I mean, the thing that I'm sure that we are the most concerned about is the obstruction of justice. That's what you're looking at. That's what the fear is with Mueller. And the president's doing a pretty good job of stating his case. He's defending himself, and he has a pulpit to be able to do that with. Let's talk about elections, Joy, and where this matters. We're in the middle of the midterms right now. The president's numbers are ticking up. They are, obviously. Do Republicans, are they concerned, or do they about Russia's meddling? I mean, we do know, looking at internal polls, that people believe that Russia's been meddling or trying to meddle in our elections for years and years and years, and that both sides have spies, not only the Russians, so do the Americans in Russia. So is this affecting the electoral outcome? Not yet, but I'm a lot more positive about the midterms now than I ever have been, as being able to keep Congress out of Nancy Pelosi's hands and in a Republican's hands, and the Senate is looking better. So the president right now, my only fault is we're still not talking about the advantages of the tax plans and the policies, but one thing he's been really good at is, while we're all talking about Russia, the president has been dismantling the Obama agenda, and that's what has Republicans pretty excited.
I love you, Kate, but that answer disturbs me. It sounds to me like the answer is no, they do not care. I want to bring Maria Teresa in, because this is Rudy Giuliani, who's been Donald Trump's TV lawyer now, asking if he thinks there's any problem with the federal government, who's sworn to protect the United States, trying to stop Russia from messing with our elections. Take a listen.
What's wrong with the government trying to figure out what Russia was up to?
Nothing wrong with the government doing that. Everything wrong with the government spying on a candidate of the opposition party. That's a Watergate, a Spygate. I mean, and without any warning to him. And now, to compound that, to make it into a criminal investigation, Bill, that's why this is a rigged investigation.
Maria Teresa, he used the buzzwords. He used the hashtag. None of it was true.
All of it. And I have to say, let's just set the table. The fact that we have Steve Schmidt, Nicole Wallace, Bill Kristol, Jennifer Rubin, all individuals that are very much Republican branded, that are basically sounding the alarm loud and clear, saying what is happening in the White House, what is happening currently in the Republican Party is not normal, should be testament to American people that we definitely need to take a seat back. If you ask me why you have the Republican leadership that does not care, is that they like power more than country. They like their power, and they like the fact that they are pillaging at scale and doing great harm to the American people at scale. So while we are looking over here, they are literally basically pillaging the coffers for future generations. It is unacceptable that we do not actually have a frank conversation. Yes, there's a spy ring going around, and yes, it is the jobs of countries to basically be in those rings trying to figure out how do you delegitimize one country or another, but it doesn't mean that it's acceptable. And the fact that Russia has been meddling in our elections, the big issue with Russians is that they want to make sure that we are destabilized and that we do not believe in the power of our vote. And that is not okay. And we have to make sure that we are very clear-eyed that when it comes to the integrity of our elections, every American, every concerned citizen should care.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the Republicans may enjoy the fact that Russia is giving them entree to, you know, massive tax cuts for now. But how do they know that they didn't get the RNC's info too? They know what they have on the Democrats. They could absolutely have on Republicans. That's what Marco Rubio thinks. I guess they're all going to be back. And up next, the real Trump spy scandal. Stay with us.
What were you told? I was told by someone familiar with it, who I trust implicitly, that with a nudge and a wink, we've been hired by Trump.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel sat down recently with a source familiar with the work of Black Cube, an Israeli private security firm that was hired to dig up dirt on proponents of the Iran nuclear deal during the Obama administration. The source alleged that the person behind the discreditation campaign was ultimately Donald Trump or someone close to him. The White House did not respond to NBC's request for comment, and Black Cube says it, quote, has no relation whatsoever to the Trump administration, to Trump aides, to anyone close to the administration, or to the Iran nuclear deal, unquote. Tasha Bertrand is back with me, and joining me now is Trita Parsi, president of the National Iranian American Council and author of Losing an Enemy, Obama, Iran, and the Triumph of Diplomacy. And Trita, you figure in this story where apparently someone, we don't know who, hired Black Cube, this Israeli firm with ties to the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence services, and that also figures in the Harvey Weinstein case. They were hired to discredit and harass some of the women who accused Harvey Weinstein. They get hired to try and discredit Ben Rhodes and a second former Obama administration aide by going through their wives, but they to try to discredit people who had put the deal together. They also came at you. I want to play a little bit of Richard Engel's report regarding a phone call that you received from a Black Cube operative. Take a listen.
So basically it's to do with, you know, Ben Rhodes and Colin Cole. Just kind of sort of allegations of impropriety in a, I mean, it's too strong to say in a corrupt sense, but certainly, I mean, and they're only allegations, but it did sound quite serious, so.
So I don't quite follow. What exactly was it that happened?
What was this person? Who were they? Did you ever find out who they were? What were they trying to get out of you?
So I was just contacted by someone who said that they were a journalist. My book had just come out, so I did a lot of media interviews without necessarily doing the screening that I might have done otherwise. And the conversation takes a strange turn in which he wants to go after Ben and go after Colin Cowell, and essentially trying to get me to say that there were individuals in the Obama administration that wanted to strike this deal because they had financial reasons to do so, that they would benefit themselves financially if this deal was struck. And it was very odd because he was essentially trying to force those words into my mouth.
And so essentially they wanted your help and to use your credibility to discredit Ben Rhodes and Colin Cowell.
Yes, because my book is on the nuclear deal and what was happening. It's the inside story of it. So I think that's part of the reason why they came to me and essentially tried to get me to say things that would validate some of these conspiracy theories that they were putting out there.
And did you get the sense during the putting together of the deal or in the immediate aftermath of it Were you aware, or could you sense that there was a disinformation campaign trying to undermine the basis for the deal as a prelude to what obviously Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel wants, which is the deal to go away?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the effort to try to discredit the deal, discredit the people behind the deal, has been going on for a very long time, even before diplomacy started. What the difference here is, though, that if this allegation is true and it really needs to be investigated by Congress, then we actually have the President of the United States ordering a foreign intelligence firm to go after former Obama officials, people supportive of the deal, and try to essentially entrap them. That's a major escalation compared to the type of disinformation and slanderous things that were being done prior to this.
And I want to bring you back in here, Natasha, because we know that, per Richard Engel's reporting, the Black Cube operation is launched very shortly after Donald Trump returns from Israel. And we know that Donald Trump has a very close relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu, who's facing his own corruption criminal charges back home, and that we know that Netanyahu wanted the deal scrapped. They wanted this piece of Obama's legacy done because now they're doing military operations against Iranian facilities. Is there any reporting on whether or not there is a direct link that can be made between Donald Trump himself, any of his aides, and Israeli foreign intelligence services, or, you know, their acolytes?
Well, we know that an Israeli firm briefed the Trump campaign before the election about psychological operations, and we know that Trump does have this close relationship with Netanyahu, but we have not been able to link Black Cube and its client directly to the Trump administration. I think that what we have, that the biggest clue that we have right now, is that Colin Kahl and Ben Rhodes were made targets by Trump aides last year. So people like Sebastian Gorka were going out on Fox News and saying these are and basically putting a bullseye on these two people, saying these are the guys that are most responsible for the Iran deal happening. Of course, Colin Kahl is wonderful, but he's very low. I mean, he's compared to Ben Rhodes, compared to the higher level people, he's really not all that senior. So the fact that you had this attention being placed on these two men is really, really telling. And of course, coincidentally, maybe not, they have been among the most vocal critics of Donald Trump, especially on social media, ever since he was running his campaign.
That feels like, and just to let the audience know what we're talking about, this is a separate Israeli firm called Psy Group that Natasha was talking about. The Wall Street Journal reported on Friday that Israeli intelligence firm's election meddling analysis comes under Mueller's scrutiny. Robert Mueller's now looking at them. That, what you're looking at, is a presentation that was made by this group called Psy Group, and one of the slides talked about the creation of fake news, discrediting news organizations and spreading uncertainty and fake content. A lot of it directed at Sanders supporters trying to turn them against Hillary Clinton, using fake bots to react to real-life situations and further polarizing the target audience. That's one of their slides. And then if we just go to element 5, it just so happens that the guy who runs Psy Group, he showed up at that Trump Tower meeting. There he was with Don Jr., Eric Prince of Blackwater, George Nader, the emissary to the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and there he is, Joel Zamel, just showing up there. But before we go, Trita, has there been any follow-up? Have you received any outreach from investigators, from FBI, from Mueller's organization, from Mueller's grand jury to talk about your experience?
I have not, but what I'm hoping to see is that Congress will actually start looking into this, because the link that Natasha mentioned, it might be very difficult to be able to get unless there is some form of investigation.
Yeah, clearly. Natasha Bertrand, Trita Parsi, thank you both very much for your time.
Thank you.
And coming up, the woman who could be the next governor of the Lone Star State. That's next.
Today is a historic day for Ireland. A quiet revolution has taken place, and today is a great act of democracy. 100 years since women gained the right to vote. Today, we as a people have spoken, and we say that we trust women and respect women to make their own decisions and their own choices.
Ireland made history on Saturday by voting overwhelmingly to repeal a strict nationwide abortion ban that was enacted in 1983, 10 years after Roe v. Wade. The landslide was a surprise in the overwhelmingly Catholic country. Irish women and men from around the world returned to the country to participate in the landmark vote to repeal the constitutional amendment. The government is expected to pass legislation by the end of the year to allow access to safe and legal abortions in Ireland. A victory for supporters of women's reproductive rights everywhere. More AM Joy after the break.
Together, we're going to make it happen. A stronger and fairer Texas. A tolerant and diverse Texas. A Texas where the everyday person has a voice and a fair shot, just as I did.
Former Texas Sheriff Lupe Valdez is now the Democratic nominee for governor after her historic win Tuesday night. In November, she'll face the current Texas governor, Republican Greg Abbott. If she wins, Valdez will be the first Latina and the first openly gay person to head the state. Only the second woman and Texas's first Democratic governor in nearly 25 years. And joining me now is the aforementioned Lupe Valdez, Democratic nominee for the governor of this great state of Texas. And okay, I feel like I should call you Lupe because that seems to be your branding. Can I call you Lupe?
You can call me anything you want. Just be nice.
Lovely. Absolutely. Well, congratulations on your historic win. How'd you do it? I mean, you are Latina, you are LGBT, you are a woman, you are a triple threat in terms of getting out the votes of marginalized people. How did you do it, and how are you going to beat Greg Abbott?
Well, let me start from the beginning here. You know, on election night, when it was very clear that I was going to win, I got a call from my niece in another state, and who was also raised by my parents. And my parents did not get to see me as the sheriff, did not get to see me as a candidate, did not get to see any of this. And tearfully, she said, "My mama would be so proud of you. You've come so far. You see, I'm the 8th child of migrant workers, and I came from the poorest neighborhood in San Antonio. From that to the candidate for the governor of Texas, what a humbling, honoring experience." So how we're going to do this is Texas chose me. Texas is not the brand that most folks are familiar with. The majority of Texas is a very friendly, tolerant state, and that's how we're going to do it. We're going to get together all the grassroots organizations and have Texas actually represent the everyday Texan and not just the small majority.
Yeah, let's go
minority, excuse me.
Absolutely. Well, your story, in a way, if you don't mind my saying, sounds a lot like Barack Obama, right? You're breaking barriers. You are a candidate who is new and different and presenting a different face for Texas as he proposed to do and did for the country. I want to go through some of the data, though, because this is the hardball of politics. If I can be Chris Matthews for a minute. Right now, the polling shows you at 36% to Greg Abbott's 48%. That's a May 19 through 21 poll. That's actually not bad for a Democrat. You've got 16% undecided. But let's look at the ethnic makeup of your state. Texas has a population that's 42% white, 39% Hispanic, and 12.6% African American. And yet, if you look at the turnout among Hispanics in Texas, it was only 38.8% in 2012. It was 40.5% in 2016. And then lastly, there's Donald Trump's margin of victory. He won 52-43. How do you get that Hispanic turnout up to the level of white turnout in the state, keeping in mind that there's also some voter suppression going on in your state?
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, you know, let's not divide the people. Let's unite the people. Let's not just say this group and that group and that group. Let's unite. We're not here to divide. We're here to unite. And that percentage that you gave is one of the closest ones that we've been in years. Every single election, we're getting closer and closer. We're close enough to make a difference. And if we continue to unite the grassroots organizations, all of the folks that voted for me and others, we're going to make this possible. This is a winnable race, but we have to continually unite the folks and get out our message. The everyday Texan is concerned not about the job-killing bathroom bills or show me your papers bill. They're concerned about public education, how their child is going to do in their future. They're concerned about health care. 1 in 6 people in Texas do not have health care. These are the things that matter to the everyday Texan, and that's what's going to unite us. The fact that someone is now their champion and speaking for them and not for the well-to-do or the rich or the powerful organizations. We're talking for the everyday Texan, and that's how we're going to unite it and make a difference.
Well, what about the guns issue? I mean, you just had that tragic killing in a school in Santa Fe, Texas. I mean, guns are very endemic sort of to the culture, at least as those outside looking in see in Texas. How does that issue wind up playing in your race?
Look, Look, I've been a federal, I was in law enforcement for over 40 years. I believe in the Second Amendment. As a matter of fact, I believe in all the amendments. For the longest time in my career, a weapon was part of my clothing, was part of who I was every single day. So I believe in the Second Amendment. But I'm also know that people who cannot handle their disagreements through other than violence should never be allowed to have a gun. Look, our children are marching in the streets. They're begging us. Children are begging the adults to do the right thing. Children are out there saying to the adults, do what you need to do. Who's the adult here? We're supposed to be taking care of them, and they're asking us to do the right thing. We need to step up as adults and make some changes. Yes, it's a gun state, and there's nothing wrong with hunting and doing some of the sports that you do, but there is something wrong with using a weapon as a means to take care of your disagreements through other than violence.
Yeah.
We need to do universal background check. There's a whole bunch of things we can do. The true thing is that the culture of the guns, it needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with some of it, but other needs to be we need to address certain issues.
Indeed. Sheriff Lupe Valdez, good luck. I cannot wait to see the debates between yourself and Greg Abbott. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Happy Memorial Day weekend. And coming up in our next hour, Rudy Giuliani's back on the Sunday shows. Oh, yay. And Michael Avenatti is here to respond. More AM Joy after the break.